I thank God for gathering us together in this worship. For us to have a chapel which is grace-filled and transforming. There are people who are behind the scenes, who prayerfully plan and prepare each service. So I would like to appreciate our chapel planning team, also Brother Richard, serving as a chapel coordinator this academic year. The Lord be with you. That the words of my mouth, the meditation of our hearts, acceptable to you, O Lord, our rock, our Redeemer. Right after Jesus predicted his suffering for the third and last time, James and John approached Jesus and say, "Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask for." Are they not bold? I mean, they are asking Jesus to do for them, not just something, but whatever they ask of them. It's like they're asking for a check from Jesus, and it must be a blank check. Here we see Jesus amazingly patient. He doesn't say, "Why don't you drop this course and go home? I mean, you are not yet ready to take a class with me." And Jesus doesn't say that. Jesus is so patient and so hopeful that even the disciples with such wrong motives could be changed and transformed. So he rather asks, "What is it that you want me to do for you?" Without any hesitation, James and John request to sit at Jesus' right and left hands when he enters glory. Their eyes are fixed neither on Jesus nor on his suffering, but on their own glory. All they want is a place of honor which guarantees power and prominence. Well, we should not be overly surprised with James and John. Their request for honor and greatness should not be so strange to us. We may not be so open and brazen in expressing such a desire, but we know deep within how susceptible we are to the lure of power and a place of honor. Retired Bishop Ken Carter says, "Religion is fertile soil in which the seeds of ambition subtly grow." There's a danger for all of us to make even Christian ministry an opportunity for personal gain and privilege, or to see Christian leadership as a way to have access to status and prominence. Even theologians are not an exception. Reinhold Niebuhr once put it this way: "The final symbol of the perennial character of human sin is the fact that the theologies which preach humility and contrition can nevertheless be vehicles of human pride." Well, what about the other 10 disciples? I don't think they are any better. They became angry with James and John, not because of their concern for Jesus or for his coming suffering, but because of their preoccupied interest in their own position or rank. the desire for a place of honor was shared by all the disciples. So Jesus calls them all and begins to teach them again. He wants to show them how great a gulf is found between his way and the way of the world. The rulers of the Gentiles lord it and exercise power over others. They want to distinguish themselves through their power and position. But it is not so among you, Jesus says. It is not so among you. Instead, whoever wishes to become great among you must be your servant. And whoever wishes to be first among you must be slave of all. Among the followers of Jesus, there should be no domination or exploitation over others. They should choose to serve all because it is the way of Jesus. In the end, their character and spirituality are to be measured by the extent of their willingness and readiness to serve others. E. Stanley Jones, as you would know, was a Methodist missionary to India for over 6 decades. And he was a close friend of Mahatma Gandhi's. And one day, Jones asked Gandhi what Christians should do to help Christianity become naturalized or indigenized in India, so that it would no longer be considered a Western religion. And Gandhi kindly offered a few suggestions. The first suggestion was this. He said, I would suggest that all Christians, all of you Christians, missionaries and all, must begin to live more like Jesus. The crucial error of colonial mission was not that it talked too much about Jesus, but that it denied Jesus in its alliance with God, in the way that it was sharing the gospel. It failed to follow the way of Jesus, which is to be a servant of all. It was the first night for a minister to serve as on-call chaplain. His beeper went off in the wee hours. A woman was killed in a car accident, and a large family was gathered in the waiting room. He was so helpless in the face of such devastating loss that he became almost mute as he was trying to minister to the family at night. The next day, he shared with a more experienced chaplain what happened the previous night, how incompetent he felt he was. Here's the deal, she replied, a more experienced chaplain replied. You cannot say anything to fix the problem. Woman is dead. Nothing you say is going to bring her back. Your job is to make sure that they know that they will not go through it. But to be in service to others is not necessarily fixing the problem. It could simply be making ourselves available, being with those who are in need, those who are going through devastating loss in their lives. Michael was a 14-year-old Korean American boy. And he was living in South Korea when he was diagnosed with leukemia. So he came to the Children's Hospital in Cincinnati to undergo an experimental treatment. The church I served adopted him as their own, prayed for him and his family, and tried to minister and support them in any way they could. Although his parents had high hopes for the treatment he was getting, it did not happen. So we all knew that Michael was dying, 7,000 miles away from his home. It was in the fall of 1999. I was spending a 3-month study leave in Chicago. And I returned to the church once every month to preach on Sunday morning and to provide the pastoral care which was needed. So I came back from Chicago one Friday evening. I spent the whole Saturday afternoon participating in our church's coffee house ministry. And then I stayed up quite late preparing my sermon. So I probably went to bed around midnight. About an hour later, like 1 o'clock in the morning, I received a phone call from Michael's mom. She was crying, saying that Michael might not make it through. And she asked me to come to the hospital. So I rushed to the hospital, stayed there with Michael and his mother until after 4 o'clock, praying with and for them, and sometimes serving as a translator between Michael's mother and the doctors. Michael did not die that morning, a couple of days later. On my way home from hospital, physically, I was that tired. But somehow, my heart was strangely filled with joy and gratitude. Joy in the sense that I was able to be with Michael and his mom when I was needed most. Gratitude in the sense that God providentially guided me to arrange my schedule so as to come back to Cincinnati on that very weekend. Well, I am sharing this story because it was not my usual way to respond to such situation. I would be quick to complain that I had to be called on Sunday morning in such hours. So do not try to send me an email or text message in such hours because I do not know how I would respond. But that morning, I was able to taste the joy of serving others, even for a brief moment. In today's passage, the final saying describes, Jesus' final saying describes the Son of Man as the one who has come to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. I do not think the word ransom indicates any particular theory of atonement, but it rather stresses the fact that Jesus gave his life to free and liberate us from what enslaves us, so that we could serve others rather than pursue our own position and families. The way of the world keeps others as well as ourselves in bondage. Yet when Jesus frees us and enables us to be in service to others, there is genuine joy. And having experienced freedom and joy, we could invite others also to the way of Jesus, who came not to be served, but to serve. And when we invite others, some may hear, respond, and join us in the life of service. When Bishop Williman was in a pastorate, one Sunday, he preached a sermon that urged his congregation to take risks following Christ. About a month later, he received a phone call from a couple in his congregation. They said, reflecting upon the sermon and giving much prayer and thought, they had decided to volunteer for missionary work in South America. And Bishop Williman's first response was, "Are you crazy? Do you know how risky and dangerous it could be?" He said he was scared to death. So he went back to his sermon script to see whether he might have overstressed or overstated the issue, so that the couple might have made such a radical move. And he said, if there is one thing which could be more scary than people not hearing a sermon, it would be people really hearing a sermon, making radical changes in their life. Out of freedom, joy we found in Jesus. When we invite others to his way, to the way of Jesus, some may hear, respond, and join us in the life of service. Lord, may it be so. Amen.